Hi there, and welcome to this information video about funding for local improvement projects. This information video will give you some information on the Community Infrastructure Levy and Section 106 funding. We will cover the Area Committee structure in Bristol and funds available, the 2021 process, give you some examples of funding that was allocated in 2019, and give you some advice on putting together an effective outline proposal using SIL and Section 106. Please note, a more detailed guidance document is also available on the website. First, I wanted to show you a map of the 6 area committees in Bristol. These are marked on the map by bold lines, and each one contains between 4 to 6 wards. You can find out which area committee or which ward your project is in by looking on the website. The sections marked in purple are priority areas, as these have higher levels of deprivation in the city. So just to give you a sense of what Community Infrastructure Levy funding is, as part of the planning process, a developer often has to give money to the council to pay for improvements in the area where their development is happening. This is usually through a planning charge called the Community Infrastructure Levy, but is sometimes through a planning obligation called a Section 106 agreement. The majority of this money is used to pay for citywide projects improving things like roads and schools. 15% of the Community Infrastructure Levy funds and relevant local Section 106 funds are made available for local decision making by councillors and local communities. Areas with a neighbourhood development plan will receive 25% of SIL funds raised within their area to support the priorities they have identified. In Bristol at present, this is Old Market, Lawrence Weston and Hengrove and Whitchurch Park. Section 106 is a planning obligation and is negotiated with Bristol City Council to define how the payment needs to be used. Some of these funds are devolved to area committees where they are broad in scope and where there's room to shape what the funding can be spent on. Many Section 106 funds are often explicitly for highways improvements, parks improvements and tree planting. We've given an example here of a broader Section 106 obligation where you could potentially find a project that could fit within the definition. So for example, the provision of improvements to parks and open spaces within 1 mile of 171 Coronation Road. So which space, what sort of improvements, that's open for someone to put a proposal forward. You can find more information about Section 106 obligations in your area by checking the website, and we'll show you how to do that later. So this screen in front of you just shows you the 3 stages in the 2021 process. The first stage runs from January to July. Initial outline proposals will need to be developed between January and March with conversations with councillors. And there is a final deadline of the 5th of April 2021 to ensure that your outline proposal is sent to your councillors, signed off and sent to the relevant area committee email address. Between May and June, community prioritisation takes place as part of community meetings. This is where councillors and communities can decide on which issues and projects they think should be taken forward for full proposals. We anticipate that many of these community meetings will be held online this year due to COVID-19. In July, informal area committee meetings are held to identify the projects to invite for a full proposal. The second stage runs from August to November, when applicants will be required to put together full proposals if they've been invited. The deadline for this is the 5th of October 2021, after which a technical assessment will be conducted and the area committees will hold their decision-making meetings and decide on final projects to fund. Stage 3 involves drawing up funding agreements for the external organisations that have been funded and then releasing funding. This usually happens in December and January. There is a visual which is available on the website which shows you this in a little more detail, so please do visit there if you want to have a closer look. To give you a sense of what was awarded in 2019, we have outlined the number of proposals that we received at stage 1, which was 167, the number that were invited to submit stage 2, which was 101, and the number of projects that were successful, which were 90. As you can see, the number invited to submit a full proposal was 101, and 90 of those were successful, so therefore a 90% success rate. This is because we don't want people to have to spend a lot of time doing a full proposal if they have a low chance of being funded. So in 2019, a significant amount was committed, 3.3 million in total. We expect this to be lower this year, and we will tell you in a second what we're anticipating the amount of available funding to be. It's worth noting that while project values in 2019 ranged between 700 and 209,000, we are discouraging proposals that are very low cost or small proposals due to the fact that they may find that the application process and the time taken to get the funding may be disproportionate to the amount that they're trying to get. So we just advise you to think a little bit about that before you make an application and maybe speak to the local councillors. In terms of the types of projects that were funded in 2019, 20 of them were related to parks, 30 were related to improving community facilities, 13 were for tree planting, although more than 400 trees were actually planted using Section 106, which was a record, and 27 were for highways and transport. It's also worth noting that for parks projects and highways and transport projects, it may be worth checking both with the local councillor and with the relevant department about the timescales for delivery on these, as sometimes there can be a long timescale between a proposal being submitted and approved and the infrastructure actually being delivered. So just to give you a sense of what we're estimating will be available in each area committee this year, we've provided some conservative estimates of what we think will be available by the end of July 2021. So please note these are conservative estimates. I'll let you just read through this and identify your area committee and see how much there is. So we just wanted to give you a couple of examples of projects which were awarded funding in 2019 and which are close to completion now. One is St Paul's Greenway, which received £80,000 of SIL and £15,936 of Section 106, which was largely for the tree planting and parks improvements elements of the project. So it was a partnership approach with a number of organisations that are listed on the slide, and it was a multi-site project. So it was aiming to improve the spaces throughout St Paul's through a series of bold, visible architectural improvements. A picture here shows the launch event that happened earlier this year and shows off some of the amazing artwork that was produced as part of the project. Another example that we wanted to show you is the Redland Club. This was awarded a mix of SIL and Section 106, so 15,000 of SIL and 27 of Section 106. It was aiming to reconfigure and refurbish the existing toilet facilities and incorporate a fully accessible toilet and baby changing space to better accommodate users of the building. We wanted to show you this project because it also applied for funding from the Landfill Trust, which enabled them to do energy efficiency work, such as installing new boilers, underfloor heating, thermal insulation and replacement LED lighting. This is a great example of a building using Section 106, SIL and Land Trust money to become more accessible as well as becoming more environmentally friendly. We'd love to see more projects doing this in our next round of funding. We also wanted to make you aware that the Council is required to follow the Public Sector Equality Duty, which came into force in 2011. The 3 bullet points outline what the Council has due regard to: eliminating the unlawful discrimination, harassment and victimisation and other conduct prohibited by the Act, advancing equality of opportunity between people who share a protected characteristic and those who do not, and fostering good relations between people who share a protected characteristic and those who do not. For anyone not familiar with the protected characteristics, these are listed here. They are age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion or belief, sex and sexual orientation. All full proposals will be required to complete an equality impact assessment to identify how they will benefit equality communities. They will also be asked to identify how they will deliver access improvements for disabled people. So we just wanted to show you how you put together an outline proposal using SIL and Section 106. So this is what the form looks like. You'll be able to see it in more detail on the webpage, but essentially it's just a two-sided sheet of A4 where you fill in some key information about what it is you're proposing, with word limits of around 50 words per section. You'll be required to submit this application form to both the councillors and to the area committee email addresses that are listed on the bottom of the form. You can find the form along with all of the other guidance information on the website. So, does your case for community infrastructure levy funding stack up? So legally, SIL funds can only be used to support the development of the local area by funding either the provision, improvement, replacement, operation or maintenance of infrastructure, or anything else that is concerned with addressing the demands that development places on an area. We know that this second element can sometimes be confusing for people, so we wanted to give you some examples. These are also in the guidance document. So could you use SIL to fund a pedestrian crossing? Yes. Park improvements? Yes. And an employment programme to equip local people to secure work in expanding local employment sites? Yes. The first two are probably fairly obvious in that they are public infrastructure improvements that many people will benefit from. The third one is one that links to this second criteria, anything else that is concerned with addressing the demands that development places on an area. So the employment programme is being proposed so that local people can secure work in the expanding employment sites. So clearly, the development is placing or providing additional demands on the area, and they want to ensure that people can take advantage of the new employment sites and actually benefit, the local people can actually benefit from that. The bottom two bullet points are two examples of things that cannot be funded using SIL. So an alley gating scheme, where it's proposing to put some gates at the ends of an alley that maybe runs along the side of some private housing, is not legitimate use of SIL because it's essentially private for private use or private benefit. Using SIL to fund a local community work post at risk because of loss of grant is also not legitimate use of SIL because it is not either infrastructure related or anything that is concerned with addressing the demands that development places on an area. So in terms of checking what SIL monies are available in your area committee, we just wanted to show you the two documents that you might want to look at. These can be a little confusing, which is why we wanted to show you them here. So at the bottom of the SIL monies held document, you'll see some totals that will tell you the sum available both for any neighbourhood development plan areas, as well as any areas that have, as well as the overall area committee area. So this is the place that you'll want to have a look to see what's available. You can also speak to your councillor about what's projected to be available. Similarly, with Section 106, you can find the Section 106 monies that are held on the website. You'll need to have a look in purpose of contribution, this column here, to see whether there is anything that fits with the type of project that you are aim to deliver. So for example, we used the example earlier of the provision of improvements to parks and local spaces within 1 mile of 171 Coronation Road. You can see here how much has already been allocated of this funding, so £4,591. But in total, there is 21,108. So there's still plenty left for a proposal within this area and within a parks and open space. We are looking at changing the layout slightly of this to make it a little bit easier to navigate in the next few weeks. So we'll update that when we can. We hope you found this a useful summary for now. We're doing this to replace our usual information sessions, which were held in person at City Hall and which we cannot do this year due to COVID-19. If you've got any further questions, you can either speak with your local councillors or you can contact us at neighbourhoodsandcommunities@bristol.gov.uk. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you have a great day.